Well, football season is back. High school football season is back, and that means a return to the Under the Lights podcast. Hello again, everybody. I am Kyle Parmley, joined by a couple of guys today, Gary Lloyd and Jeff Allison. Gary has been writing about high school football in the Birmingham area for a long time now, and Jeff is the man behind the ever-popular Alabama 6A football and Alabama 7A football Twitter accounts and websites. Guys, welcome in. How we doing? We ready for a new high school season?
Yes, definitely ready to go.
I'm ready.
It's going to be a
December
hot
to
weekend.
August flew by just like that.
Yeah, well, as we sit here today, heat indexes are soaring above 100 every day this week. Thursday and Friday games are already getting pushed back to like 7:30, 8 o'clock kickoffs, just to try to alleviate some of those heat concerns. But it's going to be a great season of football. We're excited to get into it. Gary, where are you going this first week of football?
I will be melting on the sidelines at Lions Pride Stadium for Clay Chalkville at Briarwood. So it's weird. A lot of questions for both teams in a way with the way Clay Chalkville ended last year, but more question marks obviously on the Briarwood side. You know, you're replacing Christopher Vizina, who's been the starting quarterback there since before COVID, basically. So a lot of questions down there at Briarwood. Can that defense get back to a Briarwood level type defense that we had become so accustomed to seeing over the years? And then Clay Chalkville, you know, they've got playmakers every year. They return most of them this year, just some guys in some different positions. You know, Jalen Mbakwe looks like he's going to be QB1. What that is going to look like, we will see. We'll see how long it lasts. Is it every game? Do they get to a point in the season where they feel comfortable with a Kamari McClellan or somebody else? We'll see. So that's where I'll be Friday night. So if anybody sees me struggling on the sideline, just throw a Gatorade at me, please.
Yeah, it's going to be hot. Jeff, I'm imagining you got a couple games you're going to this week.
Yes, we are going to Vestavia. I got to remember where it's at. Vestavia Hills at Mountain Brook Thursday night, and Auburn and Hoover on Friday.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely see you on Thursday, catching that Vestavia Hills at Mountain Brook game to start off. Looking forward to that. It's a fun rivalry game. They've been region opponents forever until Mountain Brook dropped down to 6A a couple years ago. So we'll be out there on Thursday night for that one. And then on Friday, I'm going to catch one of a couple of top 5 7A matchups. I will be at Hewitt-Trussville as they host Central Phoenix City. Went down to Phoenix City for this matchup last year, and Central took care of business in that one. So it'll be interesting to see what the return trip for the Red Devils looks like. So yeah, a couple of really fun games to get this first week started. If you haven't picked up one of those magazines over my shoulder, Under the Lights, the preseason magazine is out. Preview of 11 teams. Yeah, Gary's got it. Absolutely. Jeff's got one too somewhere. Hopefully he didn't throw it in the trash too quick. But yeah, we think it's a good one. Previews of 11 teams in the area. Excited about getting the season started, and we'll see how it goes. So let's dive into Class 6A. We're just going to run through the Alabama Sports Writers Association top 10 and give some thoughts on each team, see what we've got. I know, Gary, you mentioned Clay Chalkville right off the top. They have that state championship expectation, right? But they're going to have a hard time getting past. Anybody's going to have a hard time getting past number 1 Saraland this year. Saraland is the preseason top pick. They garnered all but one of the preseason number 1 votes. So they're loaded again.
Were you the one vote for Clay Chalkville?
I was not the one vote for Clay Chalkville. I don't think. I honestly don't remember. I think I went Saraland number 1. Yeah, seriously. Well, yes, I do think Clay Chalk will be really good this year, but Saraland's loaded. Um, Jeff, what do you think about the Saraland Spartans heading into this fall?
Well, like you said, they've got a lot of talent on both ends side of the football. It's they're going to be really, really good. I mean, a year. I really thought that they were going to be 1 year away last year, about in the middle of the season. I just thought, as sophomores, sophomore quarterback, Williams being a sophomore, the running back was a sophomore. I just felt like they were maybe 1 year away. But when we saw them in the state finals against Mount Brook, wow! I mean, the speed of Ryan Williams, no one has that speed, and he was definitely the difference maker. I'm even hearing some rumblings that he might reclassify, and this could be his senior year this year, so he could go straight to Alabama next year. So it'll be interesting, injury wise. If they stay healthy, I just can't imagine anyone knocking them off top this year.
Yeah, they were really good last year. Um, yeah, Mountain Brook gave them a good run in the first half of that 6A championship game, and in the second half, Saraland was just way too much, way too athletic, way too talented. Um, but we'll start. I mean, Clay Chalkwell. Gary, you mentioned Jalen Mbakwe taking over at quarterback for the Cougars after being a receiver for his high school career up until now. Coaches that I've talked to in 7-on-7 ball and getting to see these guys in the summer said that offense has still looked good. Mbakwe may not be the polished passer that you expect to see from one of these big time recruits that's a given quarterback, but he can throw the football well and throw it accurately. And the thing that we haven't yet seen though is how that offense is going to look when the bullets start flying and he's able to make plays happen on his own. So I think pretty highly of this Clay Chalkwell team. I think their potential is sky high. And Gary, I think you'll get to see that Friday night.
Yeah, I wrote a note down just curious about Mbakwe. Like we've seen him do it, you know, through the air, catching the ball. We've seen him do it after receiving the ball, making guys miss, burning guys. Like if that passing game is good enough, like I mean, he's played quarterback when he was younger. This is obviously a different level, but he's a five-star University of Alabama commit. Like he's legit. Like, how many yards do you think he could get this year passing, receiving, and even rushing from the pocket? Can he get 500 passing, 500 receiving, 500 rushing? Like what's the limit for a guy like this?
Pretty impressive. If he's as good of a quarterback as they hope he is, then he won't be needed to have many receiving yards, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember covering some Clay Chalkwell teams of old where, I mean, some starters, like, they didn't even really need to come out from halftime wearing their pads, They could have just been put on street clothes and let the second, third, fourth string guys go. So that's kind of what I mean schedule wise. You're going to run into some teams. I'm not going to name any teams. We're in the preseason. Everybody is positive, and everybody is just everybody thinks they're going to have a great year. But there will be some games where he doesn't really have to play QB as much. So you get a lot of guys experience, and I'm really curious about this Clay Chalkwell team overall. Just because the way last year ended, how it ended against Parker, and then if you follow Clay Chalkwell's social media, everything this year, the word is redemption. And I think you've got a lot of mad dudes on that team, and you've got a lot of mad dudes who are only going to play 2 games at home. So almost every week, I mean, they play at home this year are the Valleys. You get Pinson at home, you get Shades at home. Everything else is away from Cougar Stadium. So I kind of wonder mentality wise, like week to week, what that's going to look like going into other people's buildings and trying to make a statement. So I'm expecting, as long as they're healthy, I kind of just see a little. I mean, it's weird to say about 6A because of the depth of 6A, some of the parity we've seen in 6A in recent years. But I just kind of see a collision course of Clay Chalkwell and Saraland if everybody stays healthy.
Yeah, so even if we know about the Clay Chalkville offense. They've got so many headlines for years. Um, if you flip over to the defensive side, linebacker DJ Barber recently committed to Auburn. You've got a couple of Pinson Valley transfers, Tevis Metcalf and Rod Ivy, that are going to contribute in a big way to that Cougar defense. So I'm interested to see how good they are. I think they can be really, really good. Jeff, do you think as highly of the Cougars as we do?
Yes and no. I I just can't wrap my head around Bach McBachway playing quarterback for 10 games in the playoffs. I'm just trying to figure out how can they keep him healthy enough? How can you take that talented athlete and take him away from the receiver position? And to me, where he's going to be the very effective, because I mean, to me, he's the second best receiver in the state. And now we're going to put him at quarterback, and they got three really good running backs. They got a good offensive line, but I'm just wondering when teams start saying, "Hey, we're just going to stack the box a little bit on you," and then how we're gonna make you throw the football. And I understand McClellan last year struggled in some of the big games. And so I see where they're trying to make this change. But when they have to play other defensive minded teams, like the Parkers that got them last year in the playoffs, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, when they stack the box, how are they going to score? And I just don't know about his passing ability to say, hey, he can take us all the way with his passing ability. And he got hurt last year, and it's like I said, to me, I think it's just big question mark. No experience that much. I know he's played quarterback in the past. He's been the backup for the last couple of years, but game after game after game, can he be that quarterback they need him to be? I'm just not sure on the consistent level. I'm selfish. I'd rather see him play receiver, but the best of the team, I know they need him a quarterback.
I think you got a little bit of a X factor kind of deal with Stuart Floyd returning as offensive coordinator as well. I mean, Stuart he's kind of a QB whisperer. He was the QB when Clay won that first title in '99, and something I talked to Stuart about in the off season was this is what we were talking a lot about Kamari coming in, as heralded as he was at Oxford as a youngster before he transferred to Clay, kind of having that you immediately transfer and you're the guy and things are new and it's fast and it's different and you're a little out of your element and you're young. Stewart did the same thing when he was in high school. He was at Tarrant and moved into Clay. And so, I kind of wonder as the season progresses, I'm not making a prediction here. I'm not saying this is what Stewart has said. This is just a guess and just where my mind kind of goes with it. But I kind of wonder as Kamari or whoever else gets maybe some more reps in practice and then maybe a little bit of mop-up time depending on opponent, that kind of thing. I kind of wonder if you start to see Jalen's playing time at QB, or really playing time at any position, as these games go on, lessen and lessen, and some other guys get more and more experience. And then, come playoff time, I don't know what that means. I don't know if you say, hey, Jalen's our best playmaker, he's touching the ball under center or in the shotgun every single play, or if some other guy emerges enough to where you feel confident in a Kamari McClellan or in a somebody else. I can't remember the whole QB room. I'm sorry to whoever else is a quarterback at Clay Chalkville, but that's kind of what I wonder as the season progresses. Is does that role lessen in a way, or does it stay about the same?
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. The one thing I will say, there's not many teams that have the luxury of moving a guy like Jalen Mbakwe from receiver and still have one of the best receivers in the state out wide. So it's not like Mbakwe is not going to have anybody to throw to. I mean, you've got Mario Craver still there. Mario Craver's established himself as one of the most talented receivers in the state and will provide a great safety net to Mbakwe. You're right. We'll see how it goes. If they end up having to shuffle the deck a little bit, that'll be just fine as well. So looking forward to seeing the Cougars. We'll get to see them at Briarwood on Friday. Let's roll through some of the other teams in the top 5 of 6A. Hartselle, preseason number 3. Hartselle is a program that has won a lot of games for a lot of years. Hasn't quite had much playoff success in recent years. They're preseason number 3. Mountain Brook, last year's runner-up, is number 4. Theodore at number 5. So any thoughts on those 3 teams? I know Mountain Brook is going to have a hard time replicating what they did last year. So, Jeff, anything on those 3 teams?
I know Hartselle lost their quarterback, Jack Smith, who was really a baseball guy, but he would turn into be a great football player, quarterback for Hartselle, and he was the one that really made that team run last year and make that wins playoff game in the last year in the playoffs. But he's gone, so I don't see. I had Hartselle down a little bit farther just because they had to replace him in my rankings. So that's the team I think it's sort of out of balance a little bit. I would take some other teams like Mountain Brook and over Hartselle. And so it's going to be interesting to see, like I said, how they play. I think they're definitely, between them and Muscle Shoals, definitely the 2 teams up north that's going to make their way in the playoffs. But, that's sort of my thing with Hartselle and some of those teams.
Gary, what do you think about Mountain Brook?
Cole Gamble's coming back. I mean, there's
That's right.
there's a lot to replace. I think John Cooper is now taking over at quarterback, but you return some pieces. I mean, you return I think 2 offensive linemen, which you would love to return more. But if there's any coach you want coaching up your O line and having a hand in the O line, it's Chris Yeager.
Yep.
Having him as your head coach with breaking in some new guys on the O line, but still returning a running back like Cole Gamble, returning a wide receiver like Clark Sanderson, who had such a big year. But I mean, you're losing a Jackson Beatty as well. So it's kind of the same thing with almost every team. Is we talk about the guys who are coming back and the guys you lost, and you're kind of weighing those things. And they lost a lot, but they are also bringing a lot back. And I mean, it's Mountain Brook. They're going to be a factor in that region 5. They're going to be a factor in that region. They'll be right there at the end, trying to claim another region championship. So, I don't know that they'll make a run through 6A and get to the state title game. I don't know if this is that team, but they're going to be solid as usual.
Yeah, Jeff, how good is Theodore going to be? You got Steve Mask coming down. This is a team that was 13-1 last year. So what do you think about them?
I think they're pretty good, but not as good as last year. They were one of those teams that have kids that grew up last year that played together in junior high and freshmen, and they all got raised up last year as seniors. So they have that team was really close knit type team. And like I said, they've just lost players that they had last year. A lot of them on the defensive front. Their defense was awesome last year, and they just ran the football. I mean, they were pretty one-dimensional, and that sort of caught up to them in that playoff game against Saraland. But they have Cameron Pruitt back, one of their outside linebackers, one of the great players. Like I said, defensively, they're still going to be right there. What can Coach Mass do with that offense? Like I said, I don't think I see them as good as they were last year. I think they're going to take a step back just because they don't have those offensive weapons, the running game that they had last year. But they're going to be solid.
So let's run through the bottom half of the top 10 here. Preseason 6A, number 6, Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, number 7, Parker, number 8, Muscle Shoals, number 9, Spanish Fort, and number 10, Pelham in the preseason. Jeff, I feel like there's a team in that bottom half that, their 7-5 record last year may not be completely indicative of how good this team is going to be this year. Parker has gotten a lot of buzz over the summer.
Yeah, they really have. They've had a transfer in and out, and but they've got some players. To me, their defense could be the best in 6A. We went over Clay Chalkville, Kyle, like you said. Clay Chalkville's going to have a good defense with the addition of Metcalf, but Parker's going to have a very good defense. Jeremiah Beeman, Alabama commitment, and he is really, really good. Naeem offered a corner that's good. Jordan Crawford, defensive tackle. Davion Lake, Philip Davidson, another linebacker. So linebacker, their defense is very solid. I think they're like my team that's gonna, I think, surprise some people. Offensively, they got Malik Mohammed, their quarterback, and to me, he's the key for Parker. He's been working with Ben Neal, quarterback country, this last off season, and I know that offensively they've got to do some things. Even in that Clay game, I mean, it was, what was it, 6-0 in the score last year in the playoffs. So offensively, Parker's right. Defensively, Parker's right there. Can they get more on offense to help the defensive out? Because the defense is going to be solid. There is no doubt about it. It's just, can they score enough to get 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, where the defense can maybe give up 1 score, and then they'll still win some games. But Parker is my team. As Theodore was last year, Parker's my team this year to sort of shake things up in 6A.
Well, there you go, because Theodore turned out to be pretty good last year. So I'll take you through a few more teams in the others receiving votes category. You've got the likes of Homewood, Gardendale, Benjamin Russell, Pike Road, Gadsden City, Hueytown, Fort Payne, Oxford, Carver Montgomery, Pinson Valley, St. Paul's, Helena, and McGill-Tulin. Just a lot of quality programs in 6A. Not sure that any of them will have the ability to sneak up into the state championship, but they're capable of winning a playoff game or two. Gary, give me a team out of that group that I just named that you think is at least intriguing to you entering the season.
For me, I think it's Gardendale. You're replacing a quarterback who single-handedly, in a way, basically won the region last year in Tyler Nelson, just an unbelievable electric player. So you've got to replace a guy like that, which is, you do the best you can. But look, just kind of looking at the way the schedule shakes out, in the region, in Region 5. These teams we've talked about that could vie for that Region 5 championship, a Mountain Brook, a Parker, Minor is a tough opponent. They get all 3 of them at home. So all 3 of those come to Driver Stadium. Tough place to play. Chad Eads has been, building this program year in, year out. I think the last 3 years they've won like 28 games or something like that. So this shouldn't be a team necessarily that feels like a surprise, but I guess with what they've lost, it could make them feel like a surprise. And just the way that region schedule, some of those tougher opponents come into their place, gives me reason to be intrigued about Gardendale this year.
Yeah, no, I watched Tyler Nelson single-handedly beat a few teams, especially in the second half of the year last year. It was really impressive. Chad Eads does a phenomenal job at Gardendale. They'll be really good again, once again, I'm sure. Let me give you a couple of notes on a few other teams around the Birmingham area. Gary, you talked about Briarwood. 29 years straight in the playoffs. That streak was snapped last fall. But we'll see. The Lions, they got to put together the pieces once again, especially after Chris Vizina has graduated and moved on to Clemson. But they'll, Matthew Forster does such a good job over there. They'll be such a solid football team. Went 3-7 last year, but so many of those games were, just a play here and a play there. And then you got to look at a team like Homewood. Homewood came the closest of anybody to beating Saraland in the playoffs in that overtime thriller down at Saraland, 57-56. Head coach Ben Bergeson says people still ask him about that game. They still talk about it. Just a crazy game there. But his quote before the season to me, every single point they scored last year graduated. So the Patriots are going to be, new guys all over the place. that's going to be tough for Homewood to kind of keep up those winning ways. But we'll see what they do. But guys, to wrap up our 6A discussion. So Jeff, I feel pretty confident you feel good about Saraland. Gary, who's your championship pick?
I mean, I'd be going chalk here. I would have Sarah Land over Clay Chalkville. Like, just until the games are played, we're just making guesses, right? But
Right.
this feels like one of those years where, like, each week in this poll is going to be like Sarah Land 1, Clay Chalkville 2, and then we might see a whole lot of shuffling, 3 through 10. That's what it feels like to me. But that's why they play the games. But right now, I think it's a collision course, Sarah Land and Clay Chalkville.
And then lastly, we cannot have a 6A discussion without at least bringing up Rush Probst going to Pell City. Jeff, are the Panthers going to be any good this year? Is there any hope that Pell City is going to have a renaissance right off the bat?
Kyle, I know this. I will say this. I know that he's brought in. There's players there. There's better players there this year compared to last year. I know that there's better coaches that came in with Probst that's going to help out better this year than last year. Do I know that talent's going to, make a difference to some wins? I'm not sure. I know that he's really, the community is excited. I know the players, the families are over the top that he's there. So, from that looking at that's a great thing for high school football in the state of Alabama, because he is drawing some buzz, and people really, to me, want to see how he does, in his first year at Pell City. So we'll see. Like I said, things are looking up. Can I say they're going to win a state championship this year? No. But like I said, people around the program are very excited now that he's in place. They're doing a lot of different things with nutrition, with weight training, a lot of different things like that they've never seen before. And so bringing those things in at Pell City it's been big for those families. They've got on board, and like I said, I just don't know how it's going to translate in wins.
Yeah, I know it. It'll be interesting to see. That's for sure. There will be no shortage of interest and headlines coming from Pell City football this year. So we'll see. That Region 6 is maybe not loaded with state championship caliber teams, but there's not a lot of bad teams in Region 6. Like maybe there's been a couple layups in the past. I don't see any of those this year. So they'll have his work cut out for him. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, so that's Class 6A. Class 7A, kind of the same type of deal. Everybody comes into the year knowing that, hey, Thompson is number one. They've won the state championship what feels like 10 straight years. It's not quite that long, but it could be if somebody else doesn't step up here soon. So looking at 7A as a whole, Gary, Jeff, we'll start with you. Is there anybody that can challenge Thompson in your eyes heading into this year?
Well, I think, and again, it's just my opinion, I think when Thompson's last 4 championships, I think the first 3, the 2 and 3, we knew sort of that Thompson was going to win it. I think even last year, we knew that defensively they had talent all across the line, their lineup, but offensively we knew with Zach Sims getting hurt, it was an issue. And no one knew Trent Seaborn was going to be such a factor in the playoffs to win this thing. And so to me, I think Thompson overall has maybe come down a step, and you got teams like Central that, to me could push. Hewitt Trustful can make a push. Hoover can make a push. To me, those are the 4 that I have up there. I have Auburn just a slight underneath them as another tier team, in that 5th spot with Vestavia Hills. So to me, I think we're more balanced. If that makes sense to me, there's not Saraland. I think Saraland's a clear cut in 6A. I don't think there's a clear cut in 7A that we're going to say here starting in August, Thompson's going to win this thing for a fifth year. They could, but I think there's a little bit more teams that can make a push and make this race a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I just kind of what I've gauged. I mean, Trent Seaborn, the young quarterback, gains all these headlines last year for the way he played down the stretch and in the playoffs, and he was really impressive. Um, what the kind of development that you expect to see of him over the next several years is going to be really, really cool to watch because it's obvious he has unlimited potential. The thing that their defense, the last few years there was a Jeremiah Alexander and a Peter Woods on that defensive side of the ball who are 5-star prospects. There's not one of those over there right now that just feels like a game wrecker. You still got some guys in the secondary that are already, big time prospects. So we'll see. We'll see if Thompson gives the rest of the field a little bit more of a chance this year. You still expect them to be at the top of the heap as we go this year. Jeff, you mentioned Auburn. You mentioned Central. Those are two teams that Auburn's ranked number 2. Central is ranked number 4 preseason. Number 3 preseason team is Hoover. They beat Thompson in the regular season last year. So, but Thompson got that one back in the playoffs, and they really took it to Hoover in the semifinals. Hoover, second year under Wade Waldrop. It felt like this was a team that last year went through a ton during the season. I mean, there were 4 quarterbacks in the mix at times throughout the season. Really settled on Noah Schuback down the stretch. He got more and more comfortable as the year went on. And this Hoover team looks like one with a little bit more stability maybe this year could take them to another level. On the defensive side of the ball, Bradley Shaw's back, Michael Nixon's back in that front 7. But there are some questions, particularly on the back end of the defense. So, Gary, interested to hear what you think heading into the year for Hoover.
I like them to be region champs. I'll just say it. I mean, hey, why not put some stuff on the bulletin boards already?
Love it.
Well, I mean, it's that stability you mentioned, right? Like, I know that they've got guys to replace on defense, but I'm kind of resting on a little bit of, history here with Hoover and the way they play on defense. And, we might not know names right now, but here in a couple of weeks, we're going to know some names that we didn't know a year ago, that we didn't know at the time recording this podcast. Well, what we do know are some of the names on offense. You mentioned the stability. Noah Schuback, he knows he's probably going to be the guy. His off season seems like it was very productive in all the places he went and all the things he's probably learned. I think Jonah Winston, that started maybe one game, is moved to being a receiver, and he's joining 2 guys in Jordan Woolen and Fred Dunson, who have been there, done that. They're going to be seniors, so you've got guys to throw to. We'll see what the running game looks like. Hoover always seems to be pretty tough up front, and year 2 under Wade Waldrop, and just some of that, like you said, just that stability. But they've got playmaking. It doesn't seem as, at least offensively, it doesn't feel as cobbled together in a way as it was last year. And then, I'm a big schedule guy. I know a lot of these guys, would rather play games on the road than at home anyway and go into people's buildings and win. But in my mind, your biggest competition in the region, Thompson and Hewitt-Trussville, and they both come to the Met. I mean, so there is that. So I really, really like Hoover this year.
Yeah, well, Jeff, let me bring in a couple more teams into this. Hewitt-Trussville's preseason number 5, Vestavia Hills preseason number 6. So out of Hoover, Hewitt-Trussville, Vestavia Hills, kind of what do you think of those 3 teams? Because those were the other 3 playoff teams out of Region 3 last year.
My early feelings is if there's any a year for Hewitt-Trussville to get over the top, to make a push to beat a Central, a Hoover, or a Thompson, to me, it's got to be this year. With Peyton Floyd coming back at quarterback and the weapons that they have around him, I think it's like 9 starters back on offense and some key guys on defense. To me, they're a little better. They should be better where as a whole, as a team, and I think everybody else, like I said, is coming down a little bit. So, I mean, I know Hoover and Hewitt played a close game last year in the regular season. And to me, like I said, I think if there's going to be a year that Coach Floyd gets anything done, that they haven't beat those big boys, to me, the pressure is on this year to do it because of Peyton. And again, it's just my opinion. But that's why I'm saying, to me, there's 4 teams really in the mix. Gary, I see your pick with Hoover. They should be a lot better on offense. We all thought that they were unbelievable on defense last year, and they've got some holes they got to fill. I think they have filled those in the secondary. I definitely like Hoover, but I like Hewitt too. I'm pulled where to go there. And with Thompson, I mean, like I said, those 3 you could put in. And then I was a big Central Phoenix City guy last year. I really thought that they were going to win it all because I thought they had the quarterback, they've had 2 running backs, they had 3 receivers, and now they've lost half of those guys. And so to me, Phoenix City's come down a notch, but they're a little bit better on the defensive side too. So I see 4 teams almost mirroring each other in different ways that, man, I think those games with Hewitt, Thompson, Hewitt, Hoover, again, they're going to be huge games to see who can come out and win. But to me, it's been a few years since I've seen Hewitt. I've got them taking that step up, since a few years back.
Look, I can't disagree with any of that.
What
Region
what is it
3,
they have back? What is it they have back, Kyle? Is it 9 starters on offense?
Hewitt Trussell has 9 of 11 back on offense, and they have, I, I think they have 6 guys back that caught over 25 passes last year. Like
Yeah,
that whole offense is back. It just,
like it's like everything starts up front. You've got Cade Martin. 4-year starter.
yep.
He's the anchor. You've got 3 guys back. You've got the M&Ms. You've got Jackson Melton and Kennedy Mitchell both in the backfield, thunder lightning type deal. You've got the back of the year and Peyton Floyd back there. Your top receivers, Jadon Loving, Kadarius Barnes, Donovan Price, maybe the best tight end in the state, maybe. They're like, it seems like right off the bat they should they're playing Central Phoenix City. It's not like they're playing a layup, but right off the bat, you're just like, we've got to. If you're Central Phoenix City, it's like we've got to cover all these dudes in their building right off the bat. Like game 1, we can't dip our toe in the water a little bit. So it's going to be like, what can Sean Talsma, the defensive coordinator, do with that young defense? They've got Tyrell Averhart up front. You've got some experience in the back end, but I think Hewitt's season, kind of like Jeff was talking about, I'm big on Hewitt Trussell this year as well. What holes get filled on that defense, and when it's crunch time, because this team's going to put up enough points on enough opponents to where the defense probably doesn't quite matter as much, but there's going to be times where you're going to need a stop, and will they be able to get that stop?
Yeah, you're right. And I'll throw one more name into the mix here at Hewitt Trussell. You mentioned Loving, you mentioned Barnes, you mentioned Price. There's a sophomore by the name of Dylan Cope who might be the most talented out of that bunch. That is not part of those dozen guys that caught 25 passes last year, but he very well could be this year. So look out for them. And you mentioned Tyrell Averhart. Coach Floyd has told anybody that would listen is like, they've had Justice Finkley, they've had Hunter Osborne, but coaches keep coming up to Floyd being like, this 92 guy is the one that has given us a headache because we can't block him. Now,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see because this will be the first year that Averhart has been the focal point of opposing O lines. So we'll see. And there's an
You know,
Igbenogany still there in the secondary that can ball hawk with the best of them. So the Huskies, a lot of expectations for them. Vestavia Hills is a team that they've got their skill back from last year. That offense, by the end of the year, they were playing out of this world. The pace and the execution was just giving opposing defenses fits. Problem with Vestavia, problem, we'll see, but they've got to figure out the fronts on both sides of the ball. Offensive line lost a lot, defensive line lost a lot. Now, on Monday night, defensive end Jordan Ross commits to Tennessee. That guy is a known quantity, and if you listen to Robert Evans, their head coach, he's still got more that he can achieve as far as on-field production. But around him, they've got to plug in some holes, particularly on that front seven. So Gary, me and you were talking last year on this podcast toward the end of the year, and I told you that Vestavia was going to win a state championship within the next 3 years. I don't know if that's going to be this year, but if they answer questions, they've got.
I think I think you said 3 or 4, so give yourself like a little grace, give yourself a little more range. But yeah, what is it like 9 starters to replace on defense or something like that? I mean, you're glad that one of the 2 returning guys is a guy like Jordan Ross. I mean,
Yeah.
my gosh. But I do have to say this about Vestavia. On our last podcast last year, we were wrapping up 2022 and, putting a little bit out there about 2023 and, looking forward to August. I talked about quarterback John Paul Head as if he was a senior last year. So I would like to just go ahead and apologize to John Paul because he is back. He was a junior. So, I mean, a guy with that much production, I don't know what, 3,000 some odd yards of offense
Had a
last
great
year.
year.
Yeah, so can they like you said up front, will the offensive line get in tune enough to keep running up tempo? How many false starts might we expect early? That kind of thing. Especially starting with a team like Mountain Brook. But can they get in sync? Second year under Josh Franklin, offensive coordinator. You've got Keon Richardson and some guys on the outside. William Tonsmeyer's back in the backfield. So Vestavia definitely has the scheme, definitely has the personnel, especially offensively, to make noise again. We'll just see, kind of how that region shakes out. Are you making noise to get in as the 4 again? Are you taking that next step to the 3 or the 2? Are you going to have to maybe battle with a team like Spain Park for the 4th spot? I don't know. Well, that's why they play the games, but they will again be just an incredibly fun team to watch.
Looking at the rest
yeah,
of the top 10 in 7A, Enterprise at 7, Dothan at 8, Mary Montgomery at 9, and Prattville at 10 in the preseason rankings. Jeff, any of those 4 teams, they're all in that south half of the state. Any of those 4 teams kind of come across as somebody that's got a chance to be pretty strong this year?
Yeah, I mean, I have Enterprise in my top 10. I have Foley at number 8 in my top 10. To me, Foley's got the team. A lot of guys coming back from that team last year that was the number 1 seed in Region 1. I think they're going to win some games. The Thompson kid who committed to Auburn is, dynamite player, and he's got some people around him. So to me, Foley's going to be that team. Like we talked about in the past, can a Mary Montgomery, can any of those teams win a playoff game? And it's going to be tough again for them to win a
Absolutely.
playoff game again
Yeah,
this
that's
year.
going to be the question. One thing that the playoff format is going to flip a little bit in a couple of years, and you got to think some of these Region 4 coaches were really behind this because they are getting
Yes.
beat soundly by Region 3 every single year. So, yeah, I don't know if anybody in Region 4, Austin won that region last year, and Vestavia took care of them in the playoffs. So, we'll have to see, if any of them can step up and make anything happen this year. All right, Gary, out of anybody we haven't talked about yet, is there somebody in 7A that you think is going to be somebody that at least makes people pay attention to him this fall?
Spain Park. That's the team for me. I've been a broken record already with schedules, but I mean, it's like 7A Region 3. It is what it is. You're going to go through a gauntlet. It doesn't matter which team you are, you're going through a gauntlet. But now I think they're back to back, but Spain Park does get Hoover and Thompson at home early. But that means you have to go to Hewitt and to Vestavia. So kind of a pick your poison. But I remember standing at midfield at Jaguar Stadium last year. Spain Park had just lost to Hewitt Trustful like 35-10, but the guys competed, and I had already done my little post game interview chat with Tim Vakakis. Last year was his first year at Spain Park. Had already chatted with him. He comes back across, finds me, and says, "Hey, can I add something else?" And I'm like, of course, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to read it to you. So he says, we talked to our kids about moving the needle. We've got to get that needle moving. We're kind of just hovering around. We're competing. We've taken shots. We're kind of back and forth. We can't get that needle moved. And then he said, but once that needle moves here, it's not going backwards. It's coming. And I was like, oh, snap. Like, it's okay. Like, the confidence, that's a guy you want to put the helmet on for. They've been for the last year now, those guys have been in that weight room, and not only that, you've just got dudes on that team. They have a lot of pieces, especially up front on defense. You've got a young quarterback, Brock Bradley, who's going to be really good. You return some key skill guys. So I don't know that going 3-7 last year and in this region. I'm not necessarily saying Spain Park is going to be the Vestavia of last year and put up a bunch of points and get into the playoffs and make a run, but I think they're a team that, you're not going to want to see any given week. I think they're a team that's going to give a lot of, even some of these upper echelon type teams, I think they're going to give them fits and that they're going to make them earn it. So I'm really interested to watch them this season and see what kind of strides they take from year 1 to year 2 under Tim Vakakis.
I'm right there with you. Like this Spain Park team is going to be. They went 3-7 last year. They're going to be a lot better this year. I'm not sure who they're going to be able to beat out of that top 4 that's in that region. I don't have any doubt that they can compete with a couple of those, and they may even scare a few of them. But that is a team that is, even though their record at the end of this year may not be the 3 or 4 win improvement, I bet you they're going to be a team that you look at and say that team was a lot better this year. And like he said, I don't have any reason to doubt him. Ever since Vakakis has taken over there, they've been making big strides at Spain Park. And to kind of run you down a little bit of the rest of the region. Chelsea's entering their second year under Todd Cassidy. That was a team that played some close games last year, really struggled to get over the hump. Oak Mountain has a new coach in Shane McComb. You may have remembered seeing this in January. McComb is from California, so he has come all the way across the country to take over the Oak Mountain program. So we'll see how the Eagles fare this year as well. And then also you have Tuscaloosa County in that region. So Gary and Jeff, I'm going to leave you with one final prediction. Thompson, Auburn, Hoover, and Central were the semifinalists last year, and that seemed like a foregone conclusion from the word go, right? This year, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys that will not be the 4 that you see in the semifinals this year. There will be somebody that breaks through. I think it's going to be Hewitt Trustful or Vestavia that sneaks into the semifinals one way or another. Now, I may sound really smart or really dumb at the end of the year when we're looking back at that. But, Jeff, do you have any final thoughts on Class 7A before we get out of here?
I agree with Kyle. I think those 4 teams, they're like we've talked about, Hewitt Trustful could be the team that, should surprise, should make the way up the ladder. How far up the ladder can they go? That is, to me, the question. Can they go to the top of the ladder, or can they just go up one more ring from what they've done the last couple years? So to me, that's the team that I'm going to have my eye on. You know, they're going to be a very interesting team if they stay healthy. To see that offense go, it's going to be fun to watch. I will say that.
Gary, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like steal any of your boom from your prediction, but I mean, I'm kind of right there with you. I mean, I've already said that I think Hoover takes that region, but I'm also right there with how Jeff has talked about Hewitt Trustful and the way that bracket currently is before it changes for 7A. If I'm right there with riding with Hoover and Hewitt, you know what that means for the semis about Thompson. I mean, Thompson might run through this thing in 5 feet. Who knows? But right now, I'm kind of with you. I think Hoover's going to be there. I really like Hewitt Trustful, Central, and then past that, I don't know. I don't know if is it an Auburn or is it an Enterprise or a Dothan or a Prattville even. I think that fourth spot in the semis is anybody's guess, but I'm kind of right there with y'all on Hewitt Trustful. I do like Hoover just a smidge more, but we've got months and months now to talk about that. So just really looking forward to it and excited to get another season going.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I'll have a column out next week. It's so easy here in the preseason in the summertime. Everybody, and here's the thing about like preseason media day events, they're great and all, but all 50 teams that roll through in a 2-day period are going to tell you they're going to be amazing. Their team chemistry is phenomenal. They love playing with each other. It's all the same stuff. But when you start 0-1, how does your team react? And a lot of times when you start 0-1, things begin to roll downhill for you in a bad way. So the teams that are able to pick themselves up after 0-1 are usually the ones that continue to improve, and they're the ones that we're talking about at the end of the year. So with that being said, we're ready to get the game started. We're ready to have actual results to talk about because our prognostication skills are not great. But we'll see how it goes. Get started Thursday night with a couple games. Big slate on Friday. We will be with you all season here on the Under the Lights podcast. This has been episode 19, I believe, first of the 2023 season. Gary, Jeff, thanks for joining me today. We will see you guys next time.